Welcome to the Depth Dive. We take the sources you send us and really try to pull out the core ideas. Today, it's quite an ambitious one. We're embarking on a philosophical and scientific journey into, well, the fundamental nature of reality itself. Our mission here is to unpack Mihai Draganescu's 1979 work, The Depths of the Material World. You sent us some fascinating insights from this book, and it really pushes us to reconsider what we think we know. About everything, really. Elementary particles, human consciousness, the works.
That's right. And this isn't just, science or philosophy. Draganescu weaves them together. He's pulling in physics, information theory, biology, even how we think, to build this comprehensive materialist view of the universe.
Yeah.
What's really striking is how he tackles questions that are still huge debates today, almost 50 years later. He's firmly materialist, but interestingly, he reinterprets things usually seen as idealist, grounding them back in matter. It's a fascinating balancing act.
Right. So what does this all mean for you listening in? Well, Draganescu is basically inviting us to maybe adjust our mental toolkit to question if our standard kind of mechanical way of seeing the world limits how we grasp these deeper material layers he talks about. And information, he suggests, might be a key. A new lens. We're definitely going to dig into that. Okay, let's start big, like really big, the cosmos. Draganescu kicks off with that fundamental question. Is the universe finite or infinite? You'd think by 79, maybe even more so now, we'd have that sorted.
It's stickier than you'd imagine, isn't it? The text notes that even back then, scientists were juggling all sorts of models. You had open, expanding universes, closed, finite ones that might expand and then collapse, even pulsating ones. And what Draganescu emphasizes, following thinkers like Ginsburg and Popovicki, is that materialist philosophy can't just, forbid a model. It shouldn't. Science has to follow the evidence wherever it points. All possibilities are on the table.
And I found the Einstein connection really interesting in our sources, how he showed a finite universe could work if space isn't Euclidean on that cosmic scale. This curvature of space idea. How does that let a universe be finite but still have no edge?
Yeah, it's a bit mind-bending to picture, but crucial. So instead of a flat grid going on forever, imagine space itself is curved, maybe like the surface of a huge balloon. If you walk in a straight line on that balloon surface, you eventually come back to where you started, right?
Yeah.
Even though there's no edge to fall off.
Ah, okay.
It's a simplified picture, obviously. But that's the gist of how non-Euclidean curved space could allow the universe to be finite, but still boundless. Draganescu uses this to show it's a real physical possibility, not just a philosophical idea.
That feels like it connects to ideas about singularities, doesn't it? Those points where our physics seems to just stop working.
Exactly. He connects it right to the bigger picture. Singularity is like, inside black holes where you have maybe twice the sun's mass crushed into a few kilometers. They really suggest our current physics laws just aren't enough. They break down there. The fact these extreme states exist where maybe space and time kind of dissolve, it hints at a deeper level of reality, a real depth, like the book title says, where maybe our physics needs a complete rethink, linking the very small and the very large.
And some of the other ideas mentioned are just wild, like the vacuum itself having properties, being able to pop out electron-positron pairs. It's like empty space isn't empty at all, or the whole universe being like one particle. What's the takeaway Draganescu wants us to get from these?
Well, he sees these not just as weird science facts, but as genuine insights. The vacuum isn't just nothingness. It could be this dynamic source for particles, maybe where the universe itself originates. And the universe has a single particle idea. That just shatters our sense of scale.
Yeah.
It suggests maybe the universe isn't just a collection of separate things, but one unified material existence, just viewed differently. It forces you to question your gut feelings about matter and existence.
Okay, fascinating stuff. And that naturally leads us to Draganescu's next big point, the role of information. He argues that tackling these deep scientific problems means we have to shift our thinking, move beyond a purely mechanical view. Why was that shift so important for him?
Well, as thinkers like Léon Brulin pointed out, our science, historically, has been built around mechanics, mostly because our tools, our experiments, they use macroscopic instruments, things we interact with mechanically. Draganescu says the really new, significant stuff involves the informational side of matter. And we need to figure out how to integrate that with physics. He even notes that quantum physics is still called quantum mechanics, not, say, quantum informational science. He suspected, maybe hoped, it would evolve that way. It's about seeing information, not just describing matter, but being part of it.
Which brings us to this idea of deep information structures, not just describing particles, but maybe determining them. He even brings in Aristotle's prime mover, the unmoved mover idea. How does he manage that in a materialist way without, invoking something mystical?
Yeah, that's that tightrope walk again. For Draganescu, this deep information isn't external or divine. It's a fundamental layer of matter itself, like an inherent informational code within reality. But unlike Aristotle's unchanging mover, Draganescu's deep information isn't static. It's material, so it's dynamic. It can change, generate new things, maybe even kickstart new universes. The mover is part of matter's own deep structure.
Hmm. So if math alone can't fully describe the world, what else is there?
That's a really key point for him. Math, logic, formal language, they can describe a kind of automatic, predictable world, like a computer program. But he argues there's a second principle from non-formal sources, something that gives meaning, grounds things in a more alive reality. He thinks purely formal semantics, like an AI, are ultimately human-designed, external. He suggests looking for deeper, inherent semantic roots for information right within the material world, meaning bubbling up from matter, not just put onto it.
Right. And this all ties into his central concept, this ring of the material world. You said it's an organic image. What does this ring actually do for his theory?
It's his big picture, his attempt at a unified, self-contained materialist view. Picture it like a cycle, a continuous loop. It starts down in the profundities, this deep layer he posits, moves up through the quantum world, then the macroscopic world we see, then includes the subject, human consciousness, which then connects back to the profundities.
So everything's connected in this loop.
Exactly. It suggests everything, from subquantum stuff to our own thoughts, is part of one single interconnected material reality, a continuous flow of creation and interaction.
Okay, and in those profundities, he calls it orthoexistence, he proposes two basic substances, lumation and informatter. Source matter and informational matter. Can you break those down a bit, maybe an analogy?
Sure. Think of lumation as like the raw potential, the
Right.
basic stuff, the clay of existence, undifferentiated. Informatter is more like the blueprint, the deep information, the instructions telling that clay how to shape itself, how to behave. And in this orthoexistence place, which he says is without space, they combine and act. They generate movement, create universes, define the quanta of space, form particles. They're both the ingredients and the instructions, building reality from the bottom up.
And that idea of orthoexistence, a realm without space, that really messes with our intuition, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, yes, because what looks like smooth, continuous space to us, thanks to how our brains process things, is, in his view, actually quantum, discontinuous at its core. And it's all generated from this orthoexistence, this deeper reality that isn't spatial or temporal in the way we experience it. Our dimensions emerge from it.
Okay, let's pivot inward now into consciousness. It's fascinating. He talks about a philosophical experiment and distinguishes between awareness, a fire, being, a phi, and knowing, a fey. Why these specific terms? What problem was he trying to solve?
Well, he felt our usual words for consciousness just weren't precise enough. They tend to mush different things together. So he proposed these layers to clarify how consciousness might arise materially.
Huh.
He argues that a fire beingness is primary. It's not just a feeling, but an objective physical phenomenon, a fundamental material property present in us, in animals too, he suggests. And crucially, it's the source of awareness and what we might call our spiritual life.
And he tied this into brain science of the time, right? Looking beyond just the simple neuron firing model, he mentioned electrotonic graded currents and fields in dendrites, not just axon signals. What does that mean in simpler terms?
Right. So instead of just thinking of brain cells as wires firing discrete on-off signals, the axon synapse picture, he pointed to research showing more subtle, continuous-like activity. These graded currents and fields are like ripples and flows of electricity within the neuron's branches, the dendrites and local circuits. It's less like switches flipping, more like a complex, swirling electrical landscape.
Ah, like a field effect.
Exactly. A more fluid, integrated way processing might happen,
Yeah.
potentially closer to how something like consciousness could arise. It's just a richer mechanism than just simple impulses.
That makes sense. So his 3 steps for consciousness are 1, a fire, raw existence, the basic physical phenomenon. 2, a phi, the nervous system recording that state of beingness. 3, a phi, a new state emerging from comparing the first two representing understanding. That distinction between a fire and the others seems vital, especially regarding AI. Why couldn't a machine have a fire?
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
A machine could absolutely be programmed to simulate being and knowing. It could have algorithms for self-awareness, store its state, process it to know. But in Draganescu's view, it wouldn't feel its own existence, the fire, because that's not just information processing. He posits it as a self-generated physical phenomenon tied to specific material structures. He even speculates it might be like a neuronic vortex,
Yeah.
unique pattern of brain activity, maybe a new kind of wave or field that actually influences neurons, not just results from them. It's emergent, internal, not just code.
Right, not programmable in the same way. Okay, shifting gears slightly to technology. He was thinking about AI back in '79, quite ahead of the curve. He saw its potential to free people from robotized labor, giving more time for knowledge, for creation.
He did. And he noted the issue wasn't really the robots doing automated tasks. The problem was the unfilled places jobs, where humans were still basically acting like biological automatons. Mindless repetition. He saw society, with informatics and AI, potentially becoming this huge, socio-technical diffuse machine, a new kind of social animal, which could be bad, automating us further, or good, leading to a higher civilization if guided properly.
And that leads to another key distinction, open systems versus intra-open systems.
Hmm.
Open systems deal with structured reality, but intra-open ones, like us, connect to unstructured informatter. What is this unstructured informatter? How does it make us different?
It's a critical difference. An open system, like a factory machine or maybe current AI, operates on defined inputs, interacting with a predictable, structured world. But an intra-open system has this internal line to something beyond structure, the unstructured informatter. It means we're not entirely fixed or programmed. There's this inherent potentiality, a looseness inside us.
Okay.
It allows for genuine creativity, intuition, things that aren't just pre-programmed outputs. It's where novelty comes from.
And this looseness connects to math, like Gödel's incompleteness theorems.
Exactly. Gödel showed any consistent formal system, like math or logic, is incomplete. There are true things within it you can't prove using only its own rules. Draganescu sees this as reflecting the living reality of the human mind, and maybe even the material world itself. Formal systems are open, in a sense, and our intuition helps complete them. It suggests our minds aren't just logic processors. They tap into this deeper, unstructured reality, this informatter, that formal systems can't fully grasp.
Hmm. Fascinating. He also engages directly with philosophy, like Plato. He doesn't dismiss Plato, but reinterprets him materialistically. Plato's invisible world, his forms or ideas, Draganescu sees them as maybe a distorted glimpse of these material profundities he talks about.
That's precisely his move. He respects Plato's intuition about a deeper reality, but brings it down to earth. Instead of a transcendent realm, the true essence is in the material world, in his ring concept, in the way matter evolves, and importantly, in our ability to know and create. So morality, for instance, isn't handed down from some divine source. It emerges historically, socially, from how we relate to the whole material world. It's a human construct tied to our material existence and understanding.
And he argues for cultivating a superior spiritual life as a social good, not reducing everything to economics or biology. Even though those are fundamental, he thinks humanity has its own sources for, well, spiritual life. He urges us not to get stuck in purely mechanistic thinking.
Right. And this loops back beautifully to beingness, to a fire. He suggests this fundamental physical phenomenon, perhaps tied to a unique material basis, is the actual anchor for spirituality. It's a challenge, really, to rigid materialism that just dismisses it and to idealism that disconnects it from matter. He's calling for science to find new ways to explore these sensitivities, acknowledging a physical root for these profound human experiences.
Wow. What an incredible journey through Draganescu's ideas. We've gone from the edge of the cosmos deep into information, consciousness, AI, philosophy, all within this unified materialist vision.
Absolutely. And the core message for you listening is really about recognizing the sheer complexity, the deep interconnectedness of the material world, much of it still hidden. It's a challenge to look past our usual frameworks, It suggests our minds with this capacity for beingness, for creation, this intra-opened link to unstructured informatter. We're not just watching reality, we're part of its unfolding.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If our grasp of the universe, of consciousness, of matter itself is still so incomplete, and if our own minds have these inherent openings, not just logical closures, what new truths about these depths of the material world are out there waiting for us, not just to find maybe, but even to help create